So, welcome to 2015. Well, I guess everybody else has probably told you that already. So, welcome to Thursdays in 2015. I'm your Thursday host, Yucca, and this week we have been kind of reintroducing ourselves. So, I've got a list of topics that I wrote down on an envelope instead of using my phone today, just to kind of guide the conversation, or I guess this is a monologue, but the first one is, who are you? So I am Yucca. Well, my name is Arwen, but my YouTube name is Yucca. I have been with the channel, I guess this is going into my 4th year. I started as a substitute and then moved into being a full-time host. And what is our path or our practice? I identify as pagan, and I usually don't have any more specific names under that. I suppose sometimes I do identify as a witch or a neo-pagan. If I'm filling out, not the actual census, but that kind of information, I'll usually tick Wicca, just because, or if someone asks in passing, I will tell them that, because that's something that there's a little bit more awareness about, and they're more likely to get a general idea, just a quick idea. If I had to, okay, well, stepping back, I consider myself as having been raised pagan. That was not the term that was used when I was a child, but as I grew and became exposed to different vocabulary, I realized that, oh, what I think pagan is pretty much exactly how I was raised and with what I believe. As a young adult, I did have some very strong influences from the reclaiming tradition, which is probably what we'll raise our children with, or at least something similar to. But what I was raised believing was in our connection and being a part of nature. I was raised with an awareness of what we are doing with our personal energy, how we're interacting with others, using intention, using visualization, these tools that we would typically, in today's discussion, refer to as magic, were things that I was raised and taught from a very young age. For me, what being a pagan is about, it's much more about about the experience and the actual practice as opposed to the beliefs, although there's a little bit of belief aspect in there. But it's about the feeling part of the world, part of nature, and recognizing that nature isn't just the tree with the moon rising above it, although that speaks very strongly to the romantic part in me, that I recognize that nature is everything from the interactions in our cells to the animals that we are, to the relationship that we have with the ecosystem around us and the way that the weather works, to our solar system, to the galaxy and the universe. I see that all of that is encompassed in nature and that we are part of that. And in terms of belief, believing that the cycle of nature, the cycle of birth, growth, death, decay, and regeneration is sacred. And believing that that is something that we are all part of and inseparable, again, going from the level of the amino acids all the way up to the galaxy. And that's where the belief and the practice part. I don't believe in gods or deities, and I usually call that non-theist. Now, you could also call that atheist, but I tend to shy away from that word because it's easily confusable with not believing in anything. And it's not that I don't believe in anything, I just don't believe in gods and deities. I recognize why some people would feel it. Like, I understand the desire to believe in a god, or the many of the reasons why someone does, like I can empathize with that, but it doesn't fit for me. The next question is our hosting style, and what do we bring to the channel, and kind of how are we known. I suspect that many viewers probably know me as the more skeptical one, because often my response to many of the topics will be, well, that's not really part of my framework, or I don't really believe that, or that's not really useful for me. And I think it's really, I don't know if this always comes off quite as clearly as I would like it to, but the fact that I don't use something or that I don't particularly believe it doesn't mean that I don't value that it could be important or see how it could be important to someone else, or that I really particularly care, not that I care, that I'm not bothered that it works for somebody else, and I'm not judging that, oh, well, you believe in karma and I believe karma isn't an actual force. I believe karma is a result of the way that we behave, influencing the way that others behave, and then back, and all of that. Like, I don't think less of somebody because they use that framework that I don't use. And actually that kind of brings back to, we have hundreds of topics. I think I'm somewhere near 100 videos, and I'm nowhere near as many videos as some of the hosts that have been here longer than me, like Dancing Rabbit and Cara and Rich. Like, they've done they were with the channel years before I ever joined. So the thing is, we can't know all of the topics. Like, there's just an absurd amount of topics that sometimes they aren't applicable to all of us, and that's okay. Like, that's not a problem. And I know that sometimes we do read our comments, like, I promise you. The ones, and normally, I don't really mind when people don't like what I have to say. I usually get several thumbs down, or like I notice it and it's kind of amusing most of the time. The ones that do really annoy me, there's two types. The ones where people pretend like their version's the only version, the only right way, when they're like, well, the right answer, that annoys me. And the second one is when they get upset that we don't know all the answers, or that we don't know about every topic, and we can't possibly know about every topic. The way that I approach this is that there's a lot, sometimes we get topics which are really applicable to certain practices, and other times we get things that are very strangely specific, very interesting, but very specific, where they're asking about a particular deity of a particular pantheon. I could get on and I could do a bunch of research, but I don't really think that I'm not particularly interested in that. I think if it's something that you can Google yourself, then then what's the point of hearing me book report it back to you? And in all honesty, I don't know how this comes off on the video, but I'm an insanely busy person. Like, I'm a workaholic to the point that it crosses from being beneficial into sometimes being a weakness. And I just really don't have a lot of time. So what I'm interested as a host in doing is really trying to share something unique. So basically my approach is, if it's something that you can look up easily on Google, then I usually then I'm not going to do that research and give you a book report back. Occasionally something will come up that I'd never heard of, and I'll do a little bit of research on. I usually do some small Googling, but what I like to do is we usually get the videos, topics, about 2 months in advance. We get 2 months chunks at a time. And so there's time to really think about in each topic and mull it over as it goes. And so I try and share something, add to the conversation, because frankly, by the time Thursday rolls around, people have already covered the topic. A lot has been said. So what unique thing can I bring to the conversation? And in terms of my hosting style, my perception of it, and of course my perception, I'd like to hope is close to reality, but it might be different than what other folks think. But the way that I think of how I try and approach it is, I like to have a conversation with you as if this were face-to-face. Now obviously face-to-face, it's an actual dialogue and you respond and I respond and we go from there. But this is really, I try and do it as though I'm speaking to a friend. And yes, I am this wordy in face-to-face communication too. So the next part is basically what our experience has been like with the channel. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going into my 4th year. I started out as a sub, and I got some chances to do a few extra videos though, because I was the substitute for Feather, and it was her last year, and she had taken some time off from the channel. And so I got some extra videos in there, and then when we had sort of the musical chairs that happens in December and January, I got to continue on as a regular host, which has really been, which was first off a huge honor, and has actually been a really positive experience for me. So in terms of what, you know, I started off watching the channel for quite a while before auditioning, and kind of feeling brave enough to do that, even though I've been making videos on YouTube for years at that point. You know, there's a difference in viewership, and I've definitely gotten more comfortable. What I didn't really realize at the time was how big and influential these videos would actually end up being in my life. Because every week, it really helps me focus and think about things that I never would have really given much thought, and have to think about them in a way that I need to find some sort of clarity in my thoughts to be able to then communicate it back. And it's actually been like a really nice thing in my relationship. As I was saying, we get the topics about 2 months in advance, and I almost always read them out loud to my partner, and we talk about them and see like where we agree and disagree, and so it's been a super positive thing for me in terms of just focusing myself and the connection that I get with some of the viewers and the other hosts, which was a lot more than I was expecting, and then getting to think about all of that stuff. So it's been, you know, I don't really even quite have words of how you know, how much I really value having this experience and being able to share and have this dialogue with you guys, even though I just said it's more like a monologue in the greater dialogue. And the last bit is, you know, what do I hope to gain moving forward? Obviously, the continuation of getting to really think about these topics, but I am excited about maybe some possibilities of the channel sort of expanding and playing with some new ideas. And I'm not really sure yet, but I know that this is a pretty meaningful part of my week, and I really look forward to continuing to share it with all of you. So, quick personal update. I think the last time we did this was like 6 months ago. We did it in the summer, but new house, so new house, new year, and we haven't totally unpacked yet, so I chose sort of the only place that you couldn't see a million boxes, but I haven't found the box that has the SD cards, and the only SD card I could find was 2 gigs, which is why I keep, you probably have noticed a bunch of breaks, so I apologize for that. I film like 3 minutes and then it goes. But yeah, so we moved. My partner and I decided to put it on paper. No rings though, because we're not Christians, and as an EMT I can tell you a million terrible ways rings go wrong. I like having all 10 fingers, thank you. But yeah, so that's big. And last time I think I told you I was just starting my thesis. I turned that in on the solstice and it was accepted. So I will officially be graduating in February with my MS in space, and my concentration was planetary science, and my thesis was on controlled ecological life support systems, specifically focusing on fractional gravity and the radiation environment on Mars. And I've started the book that I talked to you guys about, and that's really my main focus right now. It's pop science, and to try and support that, I'm doing audiobook narration. And I've produced several books at this point. And this new house, we were actually able to build this awesome, fairly low cost little VO recording studio. So I'm super pumped about that. There's a lot of really looking forward to the next few months. So things are great in the, I don't know what we're calling this yet, I don't know what we're calling it, but this house is doing great. So happy New Year's, and a lot of good topics coming up, and we'll be announcing our new substitutes, and you'll see them at the end of the month. Okay, so take care everyone.